Good morning, everyone. It's Tom Sydney Bushnell here, aka Numbers, from the Site Club and from the Tom Numbers Show. And I've got my good pal ISMAEL Perez, we've now met in person as well. So awesome, ISMAEL. How are you? But I think this is episode 4 we've done together. So I'm looking forward to this. How are you, man?
I'm doing excellent, my friend. I'm about to take off on a tour across the states in the next week. So I'm excited about that. I'm looking forward to it. And I will be, letting everyone know where I'm going to be at ahead of time. So that way, if they want to come meet me in person, they could if they want.
Is this your book tour?
Yes. It's a book tour. I'm going to probably begin with the going to Utah. I'm probably going to make an appearance at the Red Pill Convention. They don't know I'm coming yet, so I'm just going to show up as a surprise, like always.
Where's that going to be in Utah? I was in Utah a couple of weeks ago.
I'm not sure the city, but I know it's on the 12th and the 13th this month. So
okay.
Thursday and Friday and Saturday of next week.
Okay. Well, that's very cool. I was there. I've got good friends there, and it's always a nice, peaceful. On the surface, it's just a nice, just nice, happy place. Tour is 74 in the numbers, gematria, 74. So that's cool, very cool. And Red Pill is 76. Thomas, magic wand, Ripple, contact. We're contacting with the universe. So that's awesome, buddy. Good luck with the book tour. Just let me know if when you find out. Just let me know, and I'll ping it out on my Telegram and let people know where you're going to be and stuff. So,
for sure, yeah. I'll text. Yeah. I'll tell you ahead of time. In the next few days, I'm going to be here. I'll be there.
Good, excellent, man. And we had the chance to meet in Anaheim just 2 weeks ago now, which was great. I was able to get the back end of the tour and tour 74 again, and see Janine and Mark and others, and it was good. It was just great. And then you were able to come, so we were able to meet in person. So I can confirm that ISMAEL is real. He's not a super positive artificial intelligence or anything like that. He's a real dude. He's here. He's Clark Kent. He's doing his work, and he's tall. He's bigger than me, so he's a big unit. I think we've got a picture. Yeah, we have the two of. I'll have to put that out as well. I think I did it on Telegram, but I might put it on the thumbnail. But it was great to meet you. But I think it was less than an hour because I came late and you got there earlier. But we met, and I've seen your speech now. I think, yeah, I did. I think your friend Taylor was there with you.
Yeah,
filming it. Yeah. So brilliant, buddy. Well, you can hear that rooster.
I like the picture behind you. That's pretty nice. It's beautiful.
Oh yeah, Janae will like that. She's my host here on the island on Kauai. She's been brilliant, showing me all over the place. I've done a few interviews with some of her fellow patriots here on Kauai, on Hawaii, which is great. But yeah, it's a beautiful painting, beautiful photograph, I should say, on the North Shore on Nepali. Have you ever been to Hawaii before?
Never.
Not in this lifetime.
Yeah, not in this lifetime. I'm sure in other lifetimes. I'm sure during the times of Lemuria, I was there in a different version of myself, perhaps as a high priestess. Not too sure, but I do have some memories of Lemuria. So my intention is to eventually go to these sacred spots all around the world.
Yes.
And just see if I get any memories back when I go there in person, to see if I could perhaps even remember who I was in the times of Lemuria. So
yeah. You said high priestess. So do you think? Well, I've heard that we can alternate between sexes back and forth. So you think you were a high priestess?
Oh no, let's say a high priest. A high priestess. Did I say a high priestess?
Oh, I think so. Yeah. But yeah, priestess. Well, the interesting thing about Lemuria, actually, so you've made reference to it before about your super soldier reference, Clark Kent, Superman, etc. Kryptonian's 143, which is November 5th, which is actually today's date, November 5th. It's an important one. President Trump is speaking in Pennsylvania, which is 152, which is Bournemouth, the place I was in England before I came here. My date of birth, 15th so 15th of February. But we'll see what happens with that. Also, it's closely linked to some of the markers and numbers here in this community. So it's interesting. But I was going to say, so the word super, as in Superman, is Lemuria 79, which is atomic number for gold. It's also wonder, as in you got Superman, you got Wonder Woman, these ancient lands that they came from, or planets, and came to fulfill their superhero duties. So interesting, very interesting.
You could be right. I could have been a high priestess, because sometimes we do embody the opposite sex. And now that I think about it, Lemuria was strongly rooted in the worshiping of the mother goddess, and the high council was a matriarchy. So it was composed of female warriors, similar to the Amazonians, like we watch in the Wonder Woman. And so I think that during Lemuria I could have been incarnated as a female high priestess, and then during Atlantis I could have came back as a male high priest. So that could have been the case. I'm not sure. But we do, we've had so many incarnations, so we're not always the same sex, so
it's interesting you just said that as well. So you talked about Lemuria goddess. So Lemuria is 79, also Ishmael, which is mother, which is nature. So that all those things make sense with that. But if you do goddess, which is 26, which is God, does goddess have 2 Ds or 1 D? I can't remember.
I think it has 1 D. Now, if you say goddesses, then it's 2 Ds. But if you say goddess, it's 1 D.
Okay. Goddesses. Okay. Well, it doesn't add up quite right. So if I did it with 2 Ds, somewhere in between, then it would come to Lemuria goddess would come to 152, which is the number I just mentioned about Pennsylvania. And anyway, so let's have a look. So I saw some I saw the show with you and Tara Janine just a couple of days ago, which was fascinating. I've got a question for you. So
sure.
People know that I have a Mormon connection. I was brought up that I haven't been going for well over a decade, which kind of prepared me for this moment, but I still respect the good tenets of it originally, because I believe it was authentic and good. I know you have an understanding and a connection with it as well. You're going to Utah. I mentioned this to Mark Atwood, and I haven't had the chance to do a show with Janine yet. I'm going to ask her. So I don't know if you know about this, but in Mormon doctrine and Mormon culture, they talk about translated beings, about people that are not tasting of death. So being immortal. So they were immortal, and then they were blessed to tarry on the earth and not partake of death, but they were changed in a twinkling of an eye, and translated. So they basically my understanding is they either go to a 4th dimension or a 5th dimensional reality, and then they can help throughout time, throughout history, but throughout still to this day, to do things on the earth to bring in the Great Awakening, to bring in the millennium, to bring in the second coming, the ascension, all of those things. What's your take on that? Is there another phraseology or word that you might use for people like that? Have you come across that with people being, they lived, because we talk about reincarnation, we talk about coming back as different souls, but ones that have been permitted to tarry for a long period. It talks about it in the Bible, it talks about it in Mormon, it talks about it in a few places. And I've got some really interesting codes on that with some of the key players, and I think there might be some truth to it. But I wondered if you've got any thoughts on people that, whether they call them translated beings or just not partaking of death, or another phrase, or a number of phrases. Any thoughts on that with people that have maybe been around for centuries and they're immortal, they have a different structure into their DNA, and are able to live and do good things and good preparatory work for where we're going now? Any thoughts on that? Any interest? Any intel on that at all?
Absolutely. Well, that explains the ascended masters and the ascended ladies of light. Abraham, we hear that when he ascended to the 5th dimension, became El Moria, Kohan of the first ray, which is embodying the ray of Michael, which has to do with rulership, royal blood, and rulership and royal blood. That's what it has to do, the ray of power. And then we see that manifested through his lineage, through King David and Solomon, and then later Jesus, Mary Magdalene. But, we've seen this happening in different cultures throughout the world. The ascended beings come from every continent. We have Ascended Master Afra from Africa. We have Kuan Yin from China, both males and females. And what it is a translation from a carbon-based molecular structure genetic DNA to a crystalline-based molecular structure genetic DNA. And which is corresponding to being translated from the third dimension to the fifth dimension. And so that explains how the Great White Brotherhood and Sisterhood, also known as the Brotherhood and Sisterhood of the Quest, have always kind of operated above both the white hats and the dark hats throughout all of history. They ultimately have directed the evolutionary process of humanity from behind the scenes. There's been many that have been translated. We hear about the story of Enoch, right, in the book of Genesis. How Enoch was so righteous that he didn't taste death. He actually translated. Another way to describe the translation is the transfiguration. It's a process that we are all undergoing at this time due to the ascension, where we're going to go from a carbon-based DNA to a crystalline-based DNA. Well, it's both. It's carbon and crystalline, which allows us to become immortal. And so I think many of the beings from the past who, through the rites of initiation and ascension, have managed to reach a level of consciousness, Tom, where they no longer had to taste death. And then that explains their transfiguration into immortals. And it's more than just, the seven Kohans of the seven race. I mean, there's a whole group of beings that have undergone the transformational process or the transfiguration process. I believe that that explains this number called the 144,000. The 144,000 beings are actual beings that existed in the past as mortals who have gone the transfiguration process, where through the ascension, through the understanding of the inner mysteries, were able to transform their physical vessel into an immortal vessel and have kind of been guiding humanity from the fifth dimension. And in my book, I call them the Earth Angels, because they were once human, who transfigured and were able to transform their physical body into a immortal. Now, we also could take this concept and apply it to the different angelic realms and the different realms of the celestials. For instance, according to the secret knowledge, there's about 9 different characteristics or categories of angelics. You have the Araphim, you have the Seraphim, you have the Tetraphim, Supernova. I mean, there's just different orders of angels. There's the thrones, there's the dominions, there's the virtues. There's a total of 9, and what they are is they're just humans that existed in a prior creation, in a prior Earth, perhaps in a different universe before this one, who have attained that level of evolution. So even angels and celestials are still humans. They're just humans that have undergone the transfiguration process and have assembled more than just 12 strands of DNA, because there are levels of reality where you could go beyond the crystalline structure. I've talked about this before. The next level after crystalline is hydroplasmic DNA, which is pure etheric matter. The next level after that is antimatter, which is proto-matter, which is pure light body. And I believe that the highest levels of celestials, or those that we call the archangels, are humans that have attained 48 strands of DNA, allowing them to become antimatter, pure light body. So when they manifest in physical form, all they do is they lower down their frequency, their vibration, and that's how they're able to appear in physical form on any level of reality, as humans. So even the archangels are humans. They're humans vibrating at a very high frequency. And so, yeah, that's what I've uncovered.
That's very cool. Yeah, I concur with that. Well, with the thoughts I've been having on what you've just spoken about. Thanks, ISMAEL. And again, I think we did this in our last show. You just mentioned matter and also vibrate. And matter is 77. Vibrate is 77. Christ is 77. So as we ascend and the Christ consciousness comes in, that comes. Another thing about today is a big marker on Back to the Future, because it's November 5th. 1955 is when Emmett Brown invented time travel. But I was looking at the calendar. So actually, if you go back to 1955, you can go on your phone and scroll back. It's amazing. It gives you the years and years to go back. We're actually in the same day sequence as back then. So meaning in 1955, November 5th, that's a Saturday, which is today. And so today's date, 67 years later, 67 is reset, it's exchange. But today's date is Saturday, November 5th. That comes to 252, which actually comes to Christ consciousness. So I know President Trump speaking in Pennsylvania, which is 152. I just, as with all this, I'm very hopeful for something, and we'll see what happens. But it might be a shift in consciousness. It might be a shift in the time fabric continuum that we witnessed at the event today that he's speaking at. But going back to this about the translated beings and have being able to ascend effectively and go from carbon to crystalline, and I liked when you talked about, I think you said etheric plasma, if I remember rightly, but going ascending as we go and being able to be more and more advanced, which is exciting. So this is what I've been thinking, and I'd like to, when I see Janine next, I'll talk to her and ask her about it. I mentioned this briefly with Mark Atwood, but I wanted your thoughts on it. So I've known for a while that there's been at least 2 Donald Trumps, and I don't mean a clone or anything like that. I mean good beings, but there's 2 of him. I did a show maybe a year and a half ago with Janine where she, I think, did a reading, and I think she said at the time she felt there was 3 to 4. But we did a show just recently, and she checked the cards on it again, and she felt that there were 3. But that correlated with something that I discovered when I was in Utah just a couple of weeks ago. My friend Stuart Matthews, who is 218 Guardians of the Galaxy. He's a very unique character. He's a good soul. But anyway, so he gave me a few thoughts. And as I've mentioned, this thing in Mormon culture is about the 3 Nephites who got translated. They never tasted the death. Anyway, when you do the numbers on the 3 Nephites, it comes to, Nephites comes to 77 again, which is Christ, which is matter, which is quasar, which is vibrate, hertz as in frequencies. It comes to 185, which is Donald John Trump. So I've been thinking, perhaps the 3 Nephites could be the 3 Trumps, i.e. the 3 Donalds. So, and this is another thing that's very interesting. So you've got the Godhead, and they talk about Jesus the Son, God the Father, the Holy Ghost, etc. So if you do these numbers on Donald Trump, if you do 138, 138 is the Savior. And that makes you think of the Son. And then you've got POTUS, because I used to call them real Donald Trump and POTUS because their eyes are different. One's eyes kind of go up slightly, another one kind of smile down. And there's another one which I kind of like to label as the Mar-a-Lago, the Gulf President Trump. But if you do President Donald J. Trump, it comes to 258, it comes to the gift of the Holy Ghost, which is again another, it's a Christian thing, but it's particularly in the Mormon culture. It's like, okay, there's 3 of them. But it seems like there could be 3 beings that perhaps might be these 3 Nephites, because they're translated beings. And it seems like he's on a mission, obviously, from God to help bring in the ascension. So I just wondered if that was, I don't know if you've ever had those thoughts. It came to me just in the last few weeks. So I do want to chat to Janine about it. And the other thing about it's interesting is it was John the Beloved, John the Revelator. So in some scriptural things in Christianity, they'll talk about how he passed. But definitely in Mormon culture, they talk about how he was translated, like you say about Enoch, Elias, Moses, all these great prophets from the Testaments. A lot of them didn't taste of death, and John was the same, along with the 3 Nephites. And then I'm thinking, well, who's John? Is it John Kennedy? Is it someone else? I don't know. But it seems to me that there's at least 3 Donald Trumps from what I've been feeling and what Janine has said. And the numbers confirm that 185 is the 3 Nephites, Donald John Trump. So anyway, they're the early thoughts I've got on it. I don't know if you've got any. I know it's quite maybe new. I've just descended upon you with that info, but I'd like to see what she thinks, and it might correlate with your understanding that maybe there can be, and maybe this is a better question. Have you, in your experience, seen that there's maybe numbers of versions of people? So if there's a super soldier, or if there's an ascended master that needs to fulfill a mission, can they be, 3 people? Can they be 4 people? Can there be a number of people to fulfill their mission, their role?
Absolutely, yeah. Once you reach the 5th dimension, once you become translated to crystalline / carbon base, which makes you etheric matter, then you're able to duplicate yourself. You're actually able to bilocate and be in multiple places.
Okay.
And a lot of the ascended masters from the East, like Sai Baba, Babaji, Dijwal Kul, Sir Yukatis War. I know these are probably names no one's ever heard about, but there has been it has been documented by the scribes of the East that these people were able to actually bilocate, and in some cases be in multiple places at the same time. So that's another ability that we're going to have once we transform into a crystalline base matter substance body. Yeah,
it's exciting, buddy. I can't wait for that to happen.
I don't lots to look forward to.
Yeah. You wanted to go into a few things today about more of the galactics and the things that you share. Maybe we can go into that now and talk more about the things you wanted to discuss in particular at this moment. And maybe, we'll be able to, I'm sure there'll be correlations with what's going on right now. We'll be able to bring it in, but maybe we can go in that direction.
Sure. So as I've been saying before, there has been a huge compromise of the Federation due to Enki's return. However, at the highest level of reality beyond the Federation, we have Guardians that are part of this intergalactic alliance known as the Guardian Alliance, who have reorganized the Federation, or those that remained loyal to the Councils of Light, into the Galactic Alliance. Now, something to understand is that there's actually 12 versions of our galaxies that are all coexisting at the same time. We exist in what is called the Alpha version, which is pretty much the version where the good guys are winning the war, and the good guys do win the war and bring liberation not only to the entire galaxy but to the Earth. The opposite of that would be the Omega version. The Omega, and the reason it's called Omega is because it's named after the AI god, whose name is Sorion Omega. In that version of our galaxy, the Omega version, humans didn't repopulate the galaxy. It was all draconians. It was all reptiles, zetas, and grays, where, and AI, of course, AI took over the entire galaxy and eventually just connected us through a black hole as a energy battery resources, where they just had everybody locked in through transhumanism into mechanical bodies while they were sucking up their energy. For those that remain biological, they had them in some sort of, similar to the movie The Matrix, people were put into an artificial cybernetic reality, which is something that big tech is trying to do, especially through, Facebook and the metaverse and all that stuff, which is very dangerous. They manage in the Omega version of the galaxy. They were able to manage to keep people on these some sort of stasis pods while transferring their consciousness into a machine as cyborgs, so that they could just live off of their energy and suck their energy. And so that's called the Omega version. And then in every version in between, it's a combination of either one extreme or the other. So we have different versions. For example, in one version of our galaxy, not the Alpha or the Omega, but I'm going to take some of the versions that are in between. You could say that the Lyrans, were extremely were eliminated completely. There was never a Lyran expansion where the Lyrans were able to preserve the human race and therefore go off into the different solar systems and into other galaxies, as to why now humans exist throughout the universe. They all stem from the cradle of Lyra. And then in another version of our galaxy, the AI completely took over the first Earth Grand experiment in Lyra and was able to convert all the humans to cyborgs. In a different Earth Grand experience, it's the opposite. None of that really happened. The Lyrans were able to win the war and were against the Draco, and they were able to secure the victory from the beginning, and therefore the Galactic Wars never took place. And so right now, because of all these different versions of our galaxy, we are part of the third Earth Grand experiment. So the first one failed in Lyra. The second one failed in the Pleiades. And just to let you know, the Pleiadians are future versions of us. So let's just say that these extraterrestrials, it doesn't matter where they're coming from, Arcturians, Pleiadians, Andromedans, they are future versions of us. So through time travel, we could say that we were giving another opportunity to win this war. And now, and that's why this is called the third Earth Grand experiment. Now, in the third Earth Grand experiment, everything is, how can I say it? Everything comes back to the one. Everything goes back to the organic way of life. And that's the version of our galaxy that we are going to exist in as the ascension, the organic ascension timeline takes place. So yeah, so there's, there's so many versions of our galaxy, and we do exist in these other versions of ourselves. I mean, there's aspects of ourselves that exist in these other versions. So that's just something I wanted to point out, that when this ascension takes place, it's going to collapse all the different timelines, all the different versions into one solid timeline, and then that will be the ultimate solid outcome that will actually exist, which will in turn change everything in the future and everything in the past, and it'll just be one solid timeline. So that's the beauty of what's happening right now, is that we, the starseeds, in a way, we time traveled. We came from the future to alternate the different outcomes where the dark forces win the war, where the AI, uses us as battery resources for all time and all eternity. Mm. And of course, they eventually end up blowing up the 12th dimensional Stargate, where they have access to the realms of eternity, and eventually destroy the entire organic multiverse. So we're not going to let that happen. And that's why we were given one last opportunity. And that is important to understand, that we cannot fail, and we aren't. That's why we're here right now to correct all those other versions of the galaxy, all those other timelines, into a positive one for all time and all eternity, which eventually, after the end of the millennium, there will be one final clash against the AI God and his minions. And then that's when we, the metahumans, the angelic humans, as we begin to use more of our dormant DNA, become powerful enough to destroy the AI God and all its minions, and bring peace to the entire cosmos. And that will actually kind of like reboot everything to the point where none of the catastrophes, none of the galactic wars ever took place.
The atonement, quantum 107, yeah. Everything's changed for good.
Exactly. Wow. Exactly. So right now we are existing in 12 different parallel, timelines. But again, due to this dimensional convergence that's about to happen, when the solar flash takes place, it's gonna collapse everything into one positive timeline. And that's why that's why we came from the future, to alter, and we're giving one opportunity. So what's playing out here, in a way, was also playing out in Lyra, was playing out in the Pleiades, and it failed. The first two experiments failed, but the third one, according to prophecy, is supposed to be a success.
Amazing. Amazing. Restoration of all things. Restoration. Yeah. Joseph
and that's
Smith.
why when you study the book of Revelation, the Apocalypse, which is the most controversial book in the Bible, it does mention that when the earth goes, or when the heaven on earth comes to the earth, there's going to be some sort of a reboot, and there's going to be a totally new heavens and a totally new earth.
Wow.
That's like the metaphor of explaining what I just explained, of revealing what
bring it on. Bring it on. We're ready. Bring it on. Yeah. You said as well that I mentioned restoration, because you said that, and restoration is you alluded to that. Restoration is 154. It's part of in your channel title. But then you said revelation. So the revelation is also 154, which is the second coming, which is the revelation, which is restoration, which is the golden jubilee 154. Our friend Tarot by Janine 154, all those things, But also as well, going back to, I had some additional thoughts as you were talking about today, about the thing of translation, of November 5th, of Pennsylvania, of President Donald John Trump. So this is interesting, Ishmael. So you've mentioned before, I talked about today, so Kryptonian 143, and that's been part of your numbers, part of your nomenclature for everything. So Kryptonian is also November 5th, Melania Trump 143, Paul Bushnell, my cousin, he was part of the numbers right in the beginning and still continues to be for me. But the word translation, which we've been talking about being translated, so translation is 143, and that's today's date, November 5th. But it's also Kryptonian. So I thought that was interesting. And then also, if you do translated, so if to be translated is 114, which is trump card, which is frequency, which is sovereign. So that's a nice parallel. To be completely sovereign, to be completely fully full of all of our powers, to be completely sovereign is translated. Big trump card. And then if you do a translated being, it comes to 152, which is Pennsylvania, which is where this speech is going to go on. And if you add them together, if you do translation plus a translated being, or if you do Pennsylvania plus November 5th, however you want to do it, if you add all those together, so 152 plus 143, that comes to 295, which actually comes to President Donald John Trump. So talking of the translated beings, the potentiality of maybe three of them, the three Nephites, etc. We'll be listening to President Trump later today. Not too long, actually, because I'm way around the other side of the earth in Hawaii, so the time distance won't be too much. And even just the whole thing of translate. So if you just say the word translate, that comes to 110, which comes to president. It comes to magic power. It comes to the Christ. It comes to the hearse, the Christ, all those things. Christ gate, 110, translate. So it all dovetails wonderfully. But that's so exciting, the potentiality and the possibility and the reality, I'll say, of being translated, of being at the higher dimensional levels, of having this collapse of all the other maybe non-perfect 12 universes into one, where we have a new heaven and new earth. That's the ultimate dream. That's the ultimate thing that we've all wanted and been working towards and always dreamt of in our dreams. When you're a kid, you dream of the highest possibilities and realities, and that's what we're describing. That's what you're talking about.
Yeah, exactly. And we're creating it. What we're doing here right now is going to affect the future, the past, and every probable timeline. That's how it's important that people really begin to control their thoughts and only put their attention on things that they want to manifest. So just imagine, Tom, if enough of us are all putting our focus and our attention on what heaven on earth would be like, that's how powerful we are. We would collapse all the timelines into a permanent solid timeline. We would affect, future probabilities, past. We would completely erase history and recreate history where, the conflict never took place, where there was never wars, where all those planets that were destroyed throughout the galactic wars are still intact, fully there, where Lemuria never fell, Atlantis never fell, and they're still coexisting. And they are, on parallel Earths, in an alternative universe, Atlantis is still happening, they're like on their fifth golden age. Lemuria is still kicking, Hyperborea, the second root race is still happening. Polaria, and these are civilizations that existed, before Lemuria and Atlantis, and they're now coexisting in harmony. And we're bringing it back to that. That's why I always tell people, when the ascension takes place, it's not like we're going to be relocated. It's not like we're going anywhere. We're just going to be translated from one level of reality to the next, where all these things are still fully intact. So Atlantis is going to still be there. Lemuria is still going to be there, and it's already there in the fifth dimensional Earth known as planet Terra. And so it's just a matter of time now before we hit critical mass and we shift the collective consciousness and a transfiguration of everyone's body, and everyone's going to be exalted. I know that's another word, Mormon word, exaltation, which means upgraded. Everyone's going to be upgraded. Even the young souls are going to be upgraded to the fourth dimension. And then, of course, the oldest of souls are going to be going to the fifth, sixth, seventh, all the way up to the 12th. And that explains why there's going to be different types of beings. You're going to have godlike people, you're going to have wizard-like people, demigods, and humans. But even within the fourth dimensional level of reality, Tom, humans are still going to be able to live for a few hundred years. So in either case, our lifespan will increase when this translation takes place.
Wow. Bring it on. That's everything. Yeah, that's just a state of bliss. Even contemplating is just a wonderful state of bliss. That's what we all want. And the numbers confirm it. So I mentioned before, but I'll go through a few of them. So 107 is quantum. So you spell the word quantum, and you've talked about how it will erase all the errors of the past. And I fully believe that. I fully concur with that everything, all the bad, all the dross will be burned away. It will be gone in the twinkling of an eye. And part of the reason for that, or a big part of the reason for that, is 107 is also atonement. So whether that was Christ as an individual person or as a galactic, or as a universe, this atonement, this change factor, I believe, is quantum. And 107 is also military. So we'll need some of that here on the Earth. We've been having that, and we might see more of that in the future days or weeks coming. But 107 is also trumps. It's also currency, and we've talked about the revaluation of the currencies, the level playing field for all of God's children. Superman, going back to Superman is 107, and we know that Superman can turn the Earth back to change time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
form an atonement. 107 is trumps. 107 is Aquarius. 107 is gospel. So that's another, Christian, Mormon, biblical thing, but gospel. And you think about going spelling, and people, I believe there's probably been bad spells, but also good spells. And so gospel is 107. It's part of that quantum nature. There's other 107. Warp speed. This is it. So President Trump talks about Operation Warp Speed. That comes to 220. And he says, along with Melania, through Operation Warp Speed. And I think it's way more than, it's just, he's introducing the idea, the concept of it. What is warp speed? But warp speed is 107, which is trumps, which is quantum, which is atonement, which is military, currency, Aquarius, Superman, gospel, all of those things. And then if you drop the 0, you get 17, which is Q. So it's all there. But operation is 113, which is universe. So it's universe, quantum universe is Operation Warp Speed. 113 is also, could be a date back in 2020, 11/3 or November, back in November back then, and we'll see that. And also it's the word trumpet. So trumpet, quantum trumpet. Who is the trump? Who's the trumpet? It's all those. The trump is 121, which is Revelation, which is second coming. All of those things. And there was another thought that popped in there with, I was saying, the trumpet, quantum, the universe. It'll pop back in again. But I think it's just incredible that reality, that potentiality, and that's why we feel it. That's why we dream of the utopian life, because that's our nature. That's our coding. That's our perfect highest level of coding of operating system. That's what we are, and we've just been trying to work our way out of it. So yeah, I love it. It's just perfect state of bliss. I love it.
Yeah, and even the human kingdom is part of the angelic kingdom. We're actually the 10th manifestation of the angelic kingdom, beginning with the top down, the archangels, or we call it the Elohim. From the Elohim through the process of descent, which is spirit decreasing its vibration. So we start off as pure spirit, and through this process of the descent, we become archangels, and then we become angels and different forms of celestials. And then finally, we materialize into being human. So all humans it's the final manifestation of what a celestial Elohim is. And that's why I've always believed that we are celestials that are just vibrating at a very low frequency. Now, to reverse the process, what we do is we increase the vibrational frequency of matter, and through the raising of consciousness, right? That's how we do it, right? We raise our frequency through our consciousness, right? And our emotional, feelings of high elevation, positive feelings, gratitude, compassion, love towards your neighbor, and so on and so forth. And that's how we restore ourselves back into being immortals. Because originally, Tom, all of us, every single being on this planet, I don't care if you're a newbie soul or an old soul, we all began as immortals. We all started off at the highest levels of reality, and through a process known as involution, which is the opposite of evolution, we lowered and we became denser and denser until we became, stuck in these corporal vehicles of flesh and bones. But now is the time the difference now is that we have the ability, Tom, to not only vibrate or raise our frequency and be restored back to these angelic celestial beings, but now we have the opportunity to take our body with us. It's called the integration of spirit and matter. And that is the difference between us and all the different extraterrestrials out there. Is that they don't have the types of genetics that we have. We are the only species across the multiverse that is capable of ascending in physical form into the realms of eternity, whereas before you had to shed your physical form to even make it into the realms of eternity. And now things have changed, and that's what makes us unique, by the way.
Wow. So I think we may have mentioned this before, but you were touching upon matter, vibrate. Also, you talk a lot about meditation, meditate. So the word meditate is 77, which is Christ, which is power, which is quasar. It's also the word vibrate, which is 77. Hertz is 77, but also matter is 77. So they're all interconnected. You raise your Christ consciousness, you vibrate, you meditate, and your Christ, your highest self is manifest. It turns into matter, because matter is 77 as well. We may have touched upon this, but so we were high beings before, but we didn't have a physical body. Is that correct?
Correct. Yeah, we started off as spirit beings. So there is such thing called spirit. I guess we're luminous beings.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like Yoda talks about that. Yeah.
And we through the lowering of frequency, we fell in densities. And now we're about to spiritualize matter. So now we are introducing a whole new concept to existence, which is spirit matter. Before spirit, now it's spirit matter, where E equals MC square could be reversible. Everything's energy, vibration, frequency, right? So in other words, if we start off as spirit, all it is just energy vibrating at high frequency. When we lower the vibrational of spirit, we become matter. When we raise the vibration in matter, we become spirit. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So now what we're doing is we're actually integrating, we're spiritualizing matter, so they could both meet at a point of neutrality, where we could both be spirit beings while maintaining physical form.
Wow. That sheds some light on a lot of that, because I've always heard and believed the thing of we were high godlike beings. We came to Earth and we contracted to do this, to go through this experience. But you've connected the dots on why, because sometimes I said, well, why would we put up with this? If we were high beings, why would, is it really just to test us? Is it really just to see if we could pick ourselves up and advance again? And I get that whole thing of, trying to remember something for the first time and the joy of that. But to spiritualize the matter, to become an immortal soul with a body is, that's if that's the case, if we didn't have the body before, that's a massive distinction. And that adds value to why we do it, why we've gone through this whole process, Were there any beings that have come to the Earth, say, like, super soldiers or ascended masters? Are there any that had already had that spiritualized matter, i.e. they had an immortal resurrected body, for want of a better word, that had its full capability, celestialized, immortalized, exalted, and then came to Earth, descended to Earth to help raise the rest of all the God's children? Are there any cases like that? Or if you're here in any form, whether you're an exalted master or not, but you're here in this earth existence, did you originally come from just spirit and advanced spiritual soul, or are there some that were meshed together with an immortal, physical, glorified body, come to Earth and then help raise the rest of the ship effectively?
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, the overseers of each local universe, which is what I call in my book, the creator gods and goddesses, omnipotent king and omnipotent queen, they all underwent what we're undergoing right now. And that's what made them, sovereign over each universe. And so as we take up our ascension and spiritualize our physical form through the process of transmutation and transfiguration, we're also going to become, creator gods of our own local universes. And that's one of the things that I learned and I studied in the deep doctrine of the Mormon Church. They believe in that, and that actually ties into some of the knowledge that I've been uncovering beyond their doctrine, which is so even our creator God, Christ Michael, was once a human, perhaps in a different universe on a different Earth-like planet, who experienced mortality, flesh and bones, limitation, before he ascended to the throne of becoming the creator God of our universe. And because of the fact that every day new and new universes are being born from an already existing motherverse, tells me that it is a continuous process. And so as we take up ascension, as we become transformed into immortals, then we are going to also play the role of creator gods in the near future. And of course, be in charge of many, many worlds, galaxies, constellations, systems, and many different life forms, where we get an opportunity to play the role of God and goddesses.
Yeah. Yeah, I concur with that. And they do teach that. So would an ascended soul, one that's been through this process already and then come back to help raise the rest of humanity, would they know, or would it be an awakening process within itself as well? Would they know that they were and always have been an immortal resurrected soul, but come, maybe change the frequency a bit to come and kind of be here on the earth, parachute in effectively, do the super soldier stuff or the ascended master stuff, or would starseeds be in that category, or are they somewhere in between?
Starseeds are already ascended beings. Starseeds are already coming from levels of reality where they are guardians and overseers of systems, galaxies, and universes. They just kind of called to come back to help the Earth and to help the organic way of life. So you could say that all the starseeds that are down here are already exalted beings that have completed their evolution in a prior universe before the creation of this universe. Yeah.
So there's a good chance with the starseeds with the 144,000 you talk about that being a frequency, those light beings. So a lot of the truth is there's a good chance a lot of us could perhaps be exalted, advanced beings that have already done this process and now are here just to help, man the lifeboats and get everyone up effectively.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And would we all have that direct conscious knowledge of it, or maybe just kind of a feeling, and then it would just expand as we go through this process? Or
well, it's an inner knowing for starseeds. Starseeds that have an understanding of their mission on Earth and why they came here already see themselves as some sort of saviors. Not savior. I guess, I guess I could use the word saviors because starseeds are the saviors of all humanity, the organic way of life, and
saviors on Mount Zion.
Say that again.
There's the phrase "saviors on Mount Zion." You talk about Project Restoration Zion.
They're the elect. They are the 144,000, and it's just not strict to 144,000 individuals. It's actually it's a metaphor describing beings that have attained the highest level of reality, which is a frequency, a hertz of 144,000.
Yes.
That's what the number really means.
Yeah. And hertz is power, 77. Christ, 77. Yeah.
So according to my research, there's over 50 million starseeds on the Earth right now. So that means there's over 50 million creator gods and goddesses that have left their throne from their own universes to descend into this Earth, to be mortal once again, which means that their exaltation is going to be twice as much this time.
So you can go exaltation. So when it talks about exaltation upon exaltation, that can be, so you can be exalted, but then you go through this earth process, help raise everyone else, and you can be exalted again. You can have more glory again.
Exactly.
That makes sense as well. Because the word glory is also 77, which is Christ, which is hertz, which is power, which is matter, which is vibrate, which is meditate. Okay. Very cool. Wow. There was another thing I was going to say. It's popped out again. Okay, we'll come back in again. And do you so when the solar flash happens, is that when all other 12 universes have collapsed and we've just got this one positive timeline? Is that what will happen in the instantly? Is that what we're looking at?
Yeah, in the twinkling of the eye, all the universes, the 12 major universes, of course, there's an infinite number of offshots from those 12 originals, are all going to collapse into one. So all the universes or the galaxies where Enki infiltrated, where Lyra was destroyed, where the galactic wars took place, where the AI God demolished everything and destroyed the organic way of life throughout all the multiverses, all that stuff is going to collapse as if it never happened.
Wow.
And at the same time, that's going to also rewrite our history. It's going to rewrite our past because everything's going to change, right? Talk about Mandela effect on steroids. This is going to totally change our past and rewrite everything, because our past and our future are one and the same.
They are, exactly. They are the same.
They're the same.
Yeah.
Right now, we are at the hub. We are at the hub. What happens here is going to affect everything in both directions.
It's so exciting, buddy. It's like literally, you can be we are. It's remembering that we're the creators of all of this joint collaboration. It's a work of art. But the future and the past. I remember even way before 2020, thinking that I was like, well, if you vividly remember a memory, there's no real difference between thinking of a dream or creating a memory, creating a future outcome. They feel the same, and so they are. It's the grand eternal now. Talking of the twinkling of an eye, so this is some interesting numbers on this. So you might know this from Mormon culture, but there's a phrase known as calling an election made sure, which is basically you're kind of guaranteed to be exalted, or maybe you've been exalted before, maybe you're getting your second exaltation or beyond. But that's what that is, calling an election made sure. But the numbers on that come to 246, which comes to in the twinkling of an eye as well. So there's the same value. But also this whole thing of election. So we've got the midterms coming up, and we can talk about this because of everyone in the world knows it's coming. But November 8th is supposed to be the midterm election.
3 days.
I know, 3 days time, and it's on a Tuesday. And Tuesday's 95, which is emergency, which is the shot, Nicola Magic, the Queen. There's a few things. The shot heard around the world, although that comes to 309, which is November 5th, which is today actually. But if you do Tuesday, November 8th, it comes to, again, 246. It comes to calling and election made sure. It comes to in the twinkling of an eye. It comes to Diana, the Princess of Wales, 246. So there's a few things, and there's also a third. It's 2/3 of 369, which are the Tesla numbers. So if you do 1, 2, 3, which is Missouri, which is gold, silver, Abraham Lincoln, Eric Trump. But if you do 1, 2, 3 plus 1, 2, 3, it's 246. And if you had another 1, 2, 3, then that comes to 369, the Tesla numbers, which comes to time travel, witness protection, John Kennedy, witness protection, etc. But so 246, the election. That's interesting, though, that calling an election. We'll see what happens, but calling an election comes to 246, and Tuesday, November 8th, comes to 246. And obviously, November 8th is 11/8, and you times that together, and that's 88. That's Trump. But it's also 118, the storm, the awakening, the matrix, the silver, the blackout. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. It might be fully manifest, or it might be something more behind the scenes that some of us will pick up on. But we'll see. It'll be exciting to see whatever comes. But I just feel very happy about the utopian, wonderful bliss of our eternal nature coming to fruition, which is incredible, which is what we all want, and to rectify the things of the past and going into the future, and just that blissful thing, erasing errors in history, erasing atrocities of history, erasing all things that weren't equal, that weren't fair, that were unjust. Everything. But then on the flip side, having all the wonderful things that you can create and paint and be the artist of your own reality. I just think I don't think it gets any better other than experiencing it. But that concept is just very, I think it's amazing. They're so exciting.
Yeah, another thing that's going to be happening when this dimensional shift takes place is that we're going to merge with who we were in all these other universes, who we were in Atlantis and Lemuria. So if you were a high priest, if you were a god, if you were a wizard or demigod, all those parts of yourselves are going to collapse into the here and the now. And all your abilities, Tom, are going to come in a twinkling of the eye. All your abilities again, right? See? Yeah, because there's 1,724 versions of ourselves that are coexisting on these different parallel universes. And each universe, you have different abilities, different powers. Some of them, in some aspects, you're like a god. In some aspects, or in another version, you're like a wizard. In another version, you're like, like a demigod. So when the conversion takes place, all those 1,724 versions of yourselves are going to just collapse into one. So it seems like all those different versions of yourselves, which are operating different avatars, are all going to come into one body, and you're going to have complete recollection of all your consciousness. Because right now our consciousness is scattered on all these different, dimensional realities.
Yeah. 1,724 versions, you say?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So that's interesting. That is interesting. So we got 17. Okay, 17. 41. 41's king. 41's USA. 41's good.
Oh, well,
my initials TSB. Alien 41. Coin. Lots of things. Good stuff. Good. And you mentioned as well wizards. So my understanding is, maybe darker wizards or tricky ones, and then I'd assume there has to be good ones as well. But how do people learn good wizard things? If there could be such a term of phrase, is that correct? Because you get a lot of people approaching you and but it's never really full disclosure, which is the bit that I always veer away from,
Yeah, well, there's a difference between wizards and sorcerers. Sorcerers are associated with the dark arts, with Satanism, with ritual black magic, similar to Sauron, and in Lord, I'm going to use Lord of the Rings for example.
Yeah,
Gandalf the White, and the other four guardians are white wizards. Right, they're guardians of the earth. The guy Solomon, whatever his name was, who converted to the dark, he was
is it Saruman, maybe?
Solomon, yeah, he was overtaken by Sauron. Remember?
Okay.
And that's what you call a sorcerer. So wizards are actually of the light, sorcerers are of darkness. So throughout history, get this, Tom, we have seen, or not seen, but this is something that I've uncovered, and I revealed it in my first book, The Secret Government, is that the cabal, the secret societies, have always been under the control of either the white wizards, which are the guardians of the earth. There's actually a total of 12. And in ancient times, they were known as the Melchizedeks. And they've been around since the times of Lemuria, and they still exist. They operate from the seventh dimension. Okay. And then you have the sorcerers, the black magicians. The black magicians have been the ones that have been acting as liaisons between the Draco reptilians and the cabal, or the negative secret societies. The white wizards, the guardians, the original 12 Melchizedeks, are the ones that have been directing or acting as liaison between the benevolent races, or what we call the guardian races of, the different levels of reality, and the white hats. Okay. So throughout history, there's been two factions, right? Good and evil. And that's why I've always believed magic is very real. Yeah. So.
Yeah, it is. And how can people know if they want to understand more of that? Is it just something that comes to them, or they learn from someone that is? Because there's, like I said, I've been, all kinds of people contact you. You probably get it, and it's cool, but you just don't. You have to, you have to filter. You don't want to go down roads that just are going to lead you, down cul-de-sacs. To have full disclosure. That's the one thing I've not had an obvious full disclosure and clear, like, okay, this is a good wizard to learn from or to understand from, and so I always kind of keep my distance, because there's no point wasting time and trickery and all the rest of it. So any thoughts on that? Any advice?
Well, you have to understand that even Jesus Christ was a white wizard. Jesus Christ was an alchemist. He was a magician in the art of the ways of the light. So you have the two brotherhoods that have been battling out the highest level of these brotherhoods. You have kind of like Gandalf-like figures. The three magi that went to go visit Jesus. They were wizards that were part of the Brotherhood of Light. Okay. And so throughout history, these men who have attained levels of consciousness where they were able to manifest supernatural abilities such as teleportations, such as levitation or magic, are pretty much people who have ascended their consciousness to the fifth dimension while operating a third dimensional body. And that explains why they become immortal. They spiritualize their matter, which is what we've been talking about, the ascended beings. So another concept, the ascended beings are in a way like wizards, Sanat Kumara, El Morja, Saint Germain. These are all wizard-like people. Saint Germain throughout medieval times in Europe was known as the Count, and you could see him throughout hundreds of years. He never aged. He was the one that led the Brotherhood of Light into the eventual establishment of the United States Constitution. He was the one who mysteriously showed up when the founding fathers were too wussy enough to sign the Constitution because of their fear of the British armies. There was a mysterious man that popped into the room, and he kind of just motivated them through a speech, and then that's when they signed the Constitution of the United States. And then when they looked back, he disappeared. Well, that was a wizard, Saint Germain. He was, some believe he was also Merlin, But anyways, that's speculation. The whole point is that magic is very real, and throughout the occultic, tradition, you have had your white wizards, similar to Gandalf of Lord of the Rings, and then you have had your dark sorcerers, who are their enemies. And at the highest level of these brotherhoods, it's really just a battle of magic. And those below them, like the Cabal families, are just the minions, are just kind of being manipulated by their superiors. So even within the modern day structure of the Cabal, you have, your high, I don't want to mention names, but they operate within the Vatican, which is a community of sorcerers, the Black POP, right?
Yeah.
To give you an example, he was head sorcerer until he was taken out recently by the White Hats.
Okay. And how can people find out more about white wizards, and any books or any paths to go down to learn more of this? Because I believe I probably knew a lot of this, probably previous lives, but I'd like to know more. But like I said, I've always kind of had that guarded part to it. But I would like to know from good sources, from good people, from good white wizards, any suggestions on where people can, or I could and others could find out from.
I would say that, dive into the esoteric knowledge, the esoteric tradition, which is, the occultic mysteries, and the word occult means hidden, nothing to do with darkness, something to understand is that even the Brotherhood of Light, the Ascended Masters, have always operated in secret in order to be 2 to 3 steps ahead of the Dark Brotherhood.
Yes.
So if you want to learn more about this stuff, I would say study the esoteric knowledge, I would start with Rudolf Steiner, and anthropophacy. I would also read about, Madame Blavatsky, Petrova, Madame Blavatsky. I just to, name a few, but there is a tradition where they reveal, what they call the occult mysticism. And even within Christianity, you've had what are called mystic Christians, and the mystic Christians were all about developing these abilities to use them for good. Alchemy, the ability to transfer your consciousness, right? Telepathy, all that stuff is part of the esoteric tradition. So anybody can learn that.
Okay, Rudolf Steiner, you say, is one. Is that right?
Oh yeah, Rudolf Steiner is good. He was one of the most advanced esoteric philosophers of the millennium, I would say, in the last thousands of years. In the last 1,000 years, I'm sorry, within the last 1,000 years, since 1,000 years ago, Rudolf Steiner. Also, a lot of it is directly related to the Knights Templars. The Knights Templars who uncovered a lot of the knowledge of King Solomon when they excavated the old ruins of King Solomon's temple. King Solomon was a white wizard. He was he was a white wizard. And so through his lineage, we had Jesus, Mary Magdalene. They were both white wizards. Mary Magdalene was what you called a supreme wizard, lady wizard. Their children, the holy bloodline, those that were directly related to their descendants have always been they were born with these gifts, the gifts of communicating and controlling the elements,
Yeah.
talking to the elements and stuff, among other gifts, of course. So we see also this through the bloodline of the Holy Grail. The descendants of the Holy Grail have always had these occultic abilities.
Yeah, Knights Templar. That comes to Trump Awakening, actually.
Yeah.
Trump Storm. Yeah, 173. I've always felt that Knights Templar were good, and
yeah, they were.
As with many things, got maybe some infiltrated, but definitely the origins of it. Yeah, and King Solomon. And that's the other thing. President Trump, when he did the Second Abraham Accord, he talked about Solomon. One of the guys he had to do it, he basically said the word Solomon. And he kept saying, I was like, he's pointing out something about Solomon. he's referring to King Solomon, And this is the interesting thing. So King Solomon is 144. King Solomon, digital soldier. 144. I guess some of what you haven't said it specifically, but I'd assume maybe some of the things you're teaching in your courses would maybe be in that kind of esoteric, good wizard sort of stuff. Would that be a fair opening statement on that?
Well, I don't necessarily teach about occult sciences, but I do teach galactic history. We talk about the different dimensions. We talk about the different chakras and their relationships, and the relationship of these chakras to higher levels of consciousness as it relates to planets, stars, galaxies, and universes. I go over many things. I mean, it's deep. My courses are deep. They're totally, people that take my courses are like, they either get triggered or they become activated, and they're just, and most importantly, I give people techniques at the end of the third class, methods as to how to activate and how to connect with their own, higher self, which in a way will allow them to enhance their own psychic abilities, which again, taps into the realms of being, wizard, like a wizard person, like a human wizard, capable of manipulating reality, bending reality by tapping into the quantum field with your mind.
Yeah. I think it would be fun but it'd be useful. Maybe we can have like our own Truther kind of X-Men school for the gifted, and share abilities and learn things, and then maybe that's coming. That would be cool. I'd like that. That would be cool. All right, buddy. Well, it's been great to share time with you. Any closing remarks? Where can people find you? And we'll do it again soon. Can you hear me, Ishmael? Okay. I think you've frozen. So maybe we'll wrap up now, buddy. All right. Unless you can hear me. Okay. All right, brother. Well, as always, it was really enlightening. Thank you. And God bless. Much love to you on your tour. And we'll see you soon. Thank you.